Okay. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the A.I.R podcast. Today we have another guest here today. To introduce herself, it's Lydia.
Hello.
So a bit of background of Lydia. She's a writer, director, filmmaker. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so a bit about her is she's done a lot of films, a lot of short films, a lot of award-winning films as well. And like a few micro shorts as well, I guess you count, like 1 minute films.
Yeah. So I usually work in short films. I like micro short films mostly because they're quick and easy to produce.
Yeah. And a bit of backstory is that I actually met Lydia on a project, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we did this project called Pillow Talk. Then I was doing sound for it and got introduced by a mutual friend, and then just that's how we got to know each other. Am I right? Remember
Yeah,
that?
I was sort of in a bit of a desperate situation of looking for a sound engineer and designer, and your name was flying around. I decided to
Thank you.
get into contact sort of mysteriously.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a while ago though. Actually, no, I filmed the project a while ago. It was in post for a long time.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it's done.
It's done now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a bit about to show you guys a bit of what Lydia does is that I'm gonna show a few snippets of some projects she's done now. So yeah, that's a bit of what Lydia does. Do you mind maybe doing a full proper introduction of yourself?
Yeah. So I'm Lydia. I'm based in Cornwall. I'm based in the southwest like my whole life, and I would describe myself as like a writer, director, filmmaker as a whole, as you said. I usually am focused on like women's experiences or like people from underrepresented backgrounds. And I like to sort of package them in visually interesting analogies. So my film Rage was about being a girl and not wanting to have to go through puberty and deal with periods and things like that. So we, my two friends, Joe and Anna, built this like insane gut cake. And we like destroyed a studio trying to like smash this cake up in as like we only had one, so that was really exciting. And yeah, currently I'm working on a film called Fishwife, which is commissioned in association with Exeter Phoenix, which is a really cool creative arts hub in Exeter. And that similarly is on the themes of like women's experiences, like historical and contemporary misogyny, and looking at sort of gender roles in media. So that's been really exciting. We literally just wrapped on that like a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I think when I saw like BTS of it, you had like mostly female.
Yeah, it was really exciting actually because it was intentional to have a mostly female crew, and also like a couple male crew members, but everyone would either identified as female, non-binary, or LGBTQ plus. So it's all really exciting, and when we were on set, everyone said it was quite refreshing, and it was something that they had noted, that it was a more positive experience in regards to not having to advocate for yourself whilst being on set, which I think is quite a universal experience for a lot of people who are underrepresented in the industry.
Yeah. Do you mind going a bit deeper into like the underrepresentation of like advocating? Because I'm quite young in filmmaking, so I kind of just like follow what I've been told and then just like do my best, hopefully.
Yeah, so when in an industry where you may be from like a minority group, or rather a global majority group, or just someone who is underrepresented in the industry, when you make decisions, you're often being a representative of the group that you come from. So for me, that would be women. And if you maybe make a mistake or you make a decision and people aren't really on board with it, it often you get this feeling of you are shedding a poor light on the group that you come from.
Okay.
And it adds a whole extra weight of like what you've been, like the decision making of.
So is that extra like weight on your shoulder to like not make
exactly.
put a bad foot in it?
Exactly, like you just have like this extra weight that is motivating your decision making. But being on set with like a group of like just quite a diverse group of people, I know it was like mainly women, but everyone came from like different backgrounds, different sexualities. Some people were locally Cornish, some people were from like different countries, and it meant like we all sort of had this more of a communal feeling, and understanding that we've all had this experience, so we don't want to like perpetuate it.
Yeah, and then everyone's just open to share, basically.
Yeah,
on set.
and I think being a director in that environment is so exciting, because it means you don't ever want anyone to feel like they can't come and share their ideas with you. And I would say the main thing of being a director, I would describe it as being like a funnel and a filter. So if you have like the film is like, you have like a vision, which sounds like a pretentious way of saying it, but like the vision you're sort of in charge of, and so you have to funnel everyone's like ideas, because everyone has their own sort of perspective on things, and filter them out in order to fit this vision. But what was really exciting is that when you have loads of people from all these different backgrounds, you, from yourself as well, you get all these things that you yourself would never be able to think of, because they don't come from an experience that you've had. Yeah. So
that's a really like interesting, because I think everyone's always guilty of doing like an unconscious bias to like anyone.
Yeah. I think, I've definitely been guilty of doing that. Yeah. And I think it's just as long as you're aware of it and you sort of act like with that awareness, you can't really put a step wrong.
Yeah. And everyone's just doing it because they actually want to help, isn't it?
Yeah, and you've got to understand as well when people come to you with their ideas. So like if halfway through a scene someone says, like I've had it before where someone says, I actually think like XYZ should go slightly differently, it's because they're excited about the idea and they are sort of bringing their own passion to it. So shutting people down, I wouldn't say is like the best way, but you can tell people no very nicely and just be like, actually this doesn't fit what we're going for, but like thank you for the contribution. But yeah, working on set with all those people was really exciting. It meant as well when you got stressed, you weren't like, it just takes away that weight off your shoulders that you were talking about earlier.
So you can just actually enjoy making the film.
Yeah, and you're not thinking about what people are thinking of you and your gender or your sexuality or your race. You're just thinking about the film itself, which is like, I know a lot of people have a lot of horror stories about the industry, so it was nice to, from like a grassroots film, like really like advocate for that, basically.
And the cool part is like grassroots are going to be the future. So eventually people are going to change for the better and the industry's hopefully gonna like.
Yeah, I think you really have to, because a lot of people may think like because you're an independent production,
Yeah.
you can maybe get away with things because you don't have like an HR body or anything, or like you don't like sometimes you hear. I've heard a lot of different horror stories of people being treated badly for like whatever reason, and it's like we're meant to be as like young or like emerging filmmakers like the future of this craft.
Yeah.
So why not from like day one
Set it out right.
yeah, make it how you want it to be.
That's interesting because I never had bad experiences
Mm-hmm.
on set. I've had like bad experiences in post, but that's just like because I was in uni. It's just like everyone's learning.
Mm-hmm.
Like people need to communicate more. They're not clear on stuff. Like, but like I just hope like everyone can take the chance to learn and grow, isn't it?
Yeah, I think a university film set. So I've only ever done student films while I was a student myself, or like independent productions outside as a graduate. I've never been on like a big Warner Brothers set or anything. But from my experience, I think at uni you've got to give people, in particular, the sort of grace that they are learning and that this is the position to like make mistakes.
Yeah.
I think if I could go back and talk to myself, I'd say like make loads of mistakes, but like try relax about it. Don't like beat yourself up if things don't go like you're a student filmmaker. You're not meant to make stuff which is like Martin Scorsese or anything.
Yeah,
like the man's got like a lifetime of experience.
Yeah, and they are still like trying to improve as well, isn't it?
Yeah, and everyone else around you is learning, and everyone else around you is different, like coming from different levels. I think you need to bring that across as well to being like a non-student filmmaker, especially if you are like working with your friends or like working with people who it's their like first job out of uni. And I don't think I'd be very surprised if there's anyone who works in film that isn't up the night before like worrying and being nervous about set. I think
Guilty of it.
Everybody talked about, we had like a really early morning shoot on Fishwife and we all had to be up at like 3 a.m. and we were all talking about how we're not going to get any sleep because we're all, even though we all knew that we all like each other, we're all friends and we had a really good like rapport as a crew, but everyone was really nervous because so many things, as much as you can try and control, were like completely out of our control, like the tide, the sea, the weather, whether or not people are going to be there, like all these things.
Yeah, it's just like you just want everything to run smooth, isn't it?
Yeah,
and you get nervous about it.
You just start catastrophizing in the middle of the night and it's like, actually just try relax into it, because in the end it went, I don't think I could have asked for it to go better. Like every problem that we faced, everyone was like, do you know what, yeah, let's like face it head on and figure it out. And it was like not as dramatic as I thought it would be in my head.
Quite a lot of projects have like that rocky start, but then once you get momentum, you just like swing by quite well.
Yeah, you just have to, it's kind of like, this is like a cheesy analogy, but it's kind of like cold water swimming, where it's like you'll psych yourself up,
yeah.
and actually getting into the water is so much worse than just being in it and swimming around.
Yes, okay.
Like sea swimming, which is so much more fun than, actually no, I lie. It is like filming is very fun, but I think on set, like just before, like I'm always like, I'd rather jump into like the Arctic water
just to get the stress.
Yeah.
Oh my. Then how's it like when you were like from student films? Have you done like the next step in like external productions as well? How's the transition like from a student?
It's weird because you think you know everything when you're a student because you've got the grades and you've done the work and you've got all the checklists, but actually like everything is self-motivated. There's no one to tell you, like when you're a student, I think what I underappreciated is that I had like a literal staff of lecturers that if I was stuck on something, I could be like, hey, like I don't know how to achieve this, how can I achieve it? And they would just tell you, or they would like point you in the right direction. When you were a non-student filmmaker, whether that's like as a graduate or you just did decide to go to film school, you don't have that. You have to research and find these things out on your own. So I think you learn a lot, and sort of the hard way, where things go wrong or you didn't realise something until you were there in that moment. But it is fun, and not having the stress of grades and worrying about whether you're gonna like get a good grade on something and coursework does mean you can just relax and actually take your time with things. Like there's, when you have like funding opportunities, you do get deadlines, obviously, but it's not like you'll never graduate if you don't meet this deadline. It's like, actually, you can like talk to people, and they, like the people I've worked with have always been very understanding about like circumstances and situations that may mean you can't meet that deadline, which is always really good. So yeah, I think being a student filmmaker, it is like being in a sandbox or a playground, being able to like have fun and make mistakes, like I said before, and just play at being like a writer or a director or a filmmaker, until you're sort of dropped in the deep end a bit when you graduate.
So it's very daunting when you just graduate. You're like,
Yeah.
next project now.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, I mean, there's like hustle culture, isn't there? So I think a lot of people are expecting that they will be like, you have to be constantly making something, or you, in order to be a filmmaker, you have to be like producing an actual like polished film or piece in order to qualify. But actually, like, if you are thinking about film and writing film, like if you're thinking about writing and storytelling and directing, and you're imagining films or you're watching films, these all go into like what makes you like a filmmaker. So even if you haven't had the opportunity to actually make something physical, you're still a filmmaker, which is the thing I tell myself when I'm in like a bit of a dry spell.
Really?
But it is like, it is true.
Is that how you started getting into like filmmaking?
Yeah, so, well, I started because I was a musical theatre kid, and I was like a little bit like I wanted to get into film because it was like three-dimensional, where theatre is maybe a bit more two-dimensional, where the audience is one place usually and the stage is another, and that's it. And then yeah, I went from writing plays to writing scripts, short film scripts, which the jump is quite surprising in like formatting and what you have to think about.
And the description of like making sure it makes sense to visualize.
Yeah,
or...
and like working with actors is a lot different, because you go from being like, one of the most important things is being able to hear you from like the back but still have a performance, and then you go to like the camera being able, like the microphone could be like on them, and you can be really close and trying to produce like subtle performances, or unsubtle, some, you know. But yeah, I started just doing art and theatre and sort of combining them together, and found that I actually really enjoyed filmmaking a lot more.
And then you went straight into directing your own films.
Yeah, I mean, I thought I wanted to be a cinematographer, but I couldn't afford a camera. So I started directing, because in first year I had like a group of friends. We had to come up with like a project, and I had a group of friends, and for some reason they didn't have like a director on board, which I found like weird, because in my head I was like, surely everyone wants to be a director.
Yeah.
And like, no, we don't have a director on board. So I did that, and the film was questionable because we were first years, and I remember we were at the back with our heads in our jumpers because we found it so funny, and we just couldn't believe that it was like on a screen. And I remember our lecturer was like, what was that? And we were like, we don't know. We're first years. How are we supposed to know?
It's okay. That's the first mistake.
Yeah,
that you, like,
it's
learn.
okay. That's like on my roster. I've learned I learned so much about like what filmmaking was and why, like basic stuff that you wouldn't even think about, like the line and like how it's gonna edit together and why sometimes things that are meant to be serious actually come across really funny. But yeah, like getting into filmmaking, definitely one of the best decisions of my life, but also incredibly stressful to think about.
Now that you mention it, yeah.
Yeah.
Because then when you see the scripts, you like kind of have to visualize it how you want it to see.
Yeah, I'm definitely like a visual person.
Yeah.
So I'm always like, I usually draw out or I make a mood board, or I have like a scene or a vision in my head when I start. So it's like Fishwife is about a girl who's dressed as a shrimp left to a sea monster, and that just started as like, I really like the idea of like a 13th century peasant person dressed as a shrimp for some reason. And so I was like drawing that like over and over in my sketchbook because I was really into it and I was trying to find a story in it. And that's basically where all my ideas come from, is just being like obsessive over one image that I really want to recreate, and then finding some excuse in a story in order to make that.
Is that how you define your genre?
Yeah, I think it's just like my like process. I don't get asked about it a lot, but like my process is basically just like, I really, really want to do like, I really want to basically create this like moving image where this thing happens. So with Rage, it was like, I really wanted a gut cake and I really wanted it to be really pink. So I just made up a story around it. And then like Pillow Talk sort of came more from my own experiences and was a little bit more rooted in like quite serious themes. But I had like I had this experience where I was then crying into a pillow, and then I like took the pillow off my face, and then I was like, oh, I've got like a whole imprint of my makeup on my pillow, and then I was like, this would be a really good film idea. I was like, this could work really well as like a thing in a film. Like what would happen if the pillow like spoke to me, or like what would happen if the pillow then like came to life and did stuff. And I did have like a whole story which kind of was purposely avoidant of the themes that Pillow Talk is actually about, which is about like trigger warning, like sexual assault and like night clubbing life.
Yeah, it was very intense.
Yeah, it ended
even
up
when
being
I did it,
really intense and quite cathartic to make. But I don't think I'd be reapproaching that topic again, just because it's very, very intense all the way through, and thinking about that all the time isn't necessarily the therapeutic process I thought it was going to be. But for a while it was going to be like a cult around this pillow, and then I was like, that's so far away, like let's go back to like what's it really about. But yeah, I just get obsessed with like an image, and then I make these like almost like comics drawn out in my sketchbook, and they become like storyboards, and then I sort of work off that with a script, and that's probably,
you could make like a mini like comic series.
Yeah,
for all your
I'm always like I could just make this a graphic novel, but it doesn't scratch the same itch as like filmmaking does.
Because you want that kind of like viewer experience.
Yeah, and I want to see like, I want there to be like an audience, like a communal audience experience, and like a graphic novel is quite individual and sort of contained. But like when you're in a cinema and you've got this massive screen in front of you and you've got all these people and it's dark and it's just like in your face, it just feels so much more like expansive and big.
Because you feel like those who come to watch actually just come to want to see it as
Yeah,
well.
and it's like, you can't move from, I mean, you can get up and go, but like in a cinema, you can't leave really. You are stuck in the film. Like, I don't know, I'm not like really a graphic novel-y person, so I'm sure there's people who feel that way about graphic novels, but I feel this way about films.
Then is it hard? Cause once you start from that image, obviously it's like that's your experience with it. Like, how hard is it to like get that experience from your vision to like make sure other people can understand it, or at least experience as much as you hope?
Yeah, I find like trying to communicate what you mean can be really difficult, and I think when people go into directing, it's probably the first thing or for me it was like the first thing that I was like, oh, I thought this would be easy, but it's not. And I was given this book by Sidney Lumet, which I can't remember what it's called. I think it's just like directing actors, but it has like partway through is just synonyms for like different actions, and like it talks about not just saying like more something, like use specific language. So instead of being like more angry, like that could mean anything. So you could say like, actually I want it frustrated, or I want them to be furious, or I want them to be. So one of the biggest things I probably need to like read up on again is literally expanding my vocabulary. I think that's probably the best thing you can do, because if I say like more angry, everyone in the room, like to a dozen people in a room, everyone can interpret that in like different ways. But if I was like, yeah, like more frustrated or more exasperated, it's way more specific. But yeah, knowing your vocabulary, knowing lots of different words. I didn't expect to, but it is like a big deal.
Especially when everyone will speak a different language, because
Yeah.
they're all in a different department doing a different thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like the storyboards work really well because they can see it, but sometimes storyboards are just like a little stick man. Like I take a lot of pride in taking a long time in storyboards, but it's usually the first couple scenes will be done like really well, and then by the end of it it's just stick people, because I'm like, let's get this done, let's get this out of here. So yeah, learning to literally communicate on like a really basic level of like learning your words is so important.
And then how is it like, because when you're once you started with a vision, you want to bring it to life, anything you kind of like look out for when you try and build your film?
I like bringing people on and being like, what do you think about this? And bouncing off them. I think it's quite a social thing. I'm always looking for me, my personal aesthetic I always want to sort of strive for is quite like bold in like colour or movement and like visual analogies. But I think most of the time it's usually centered around that one image where it's like, for Fishwife, the shrimp girl on the seashore. And when I'm directing, that's what I'm sort of thinking about, is like, how do we always bring it back to like this image or the through line, which is like the spine of your film, of like why it sort of summarizes why you're making this film, or like the basic storyline that if you're struggling to make a decision you can return back to.
So that's like the core of the idea has to be there.
Yeah, so if you're just stuck, you literally just go back to like the core of your story and why and what, like, or like what that character wants to get. So how does how would their decisions inform their, or how does their motivation inform your decisions? So yeah, like in Fishwife, the main character Maggie, she wants to be sacrificed to a sea monster because she doesn't like her life in the village. So it's like everything sort of goes back to like she's unhappy.
That's crazy. How often do you come up with these like crazy ideas and images? Do they just pop up, or like do you actually have like creative like breaks, or like some?
I do get it a lot where if it's like something to actually like submit a treatment or a pitch deck to, I'm always like, oh man, what have I got? And like, I think if someone sat me down and was like, think of like a film that has to fit like these briefs, like recently I've been writing a script for a brief, and it's like, I actually am really struggling. Like I can't, like, I would say the way I work can be quite spontaneous, but the way you sort of work around that, and what I find works best working around like writer's block, or I guess director's block, is basically anytime I have an idea, I always have a sketchbook with me. And anytime when I have an idea, I usually draw it or write it down or something. And then when I am in a position or an opportunity comes up for like a script call out or a commissioning thing, I can go back through my sketchbook and look at my ideas. And one of the things that I really took on board when I was like first a graduate, I saw so like COVID had just happened, so like loads of film festivals were now online, which meant loads of like masterclasses were also online. And when I was first a graduate, we'd just gone through COVID, so loads of film festivals were online, loads of masterclasses were online, and there was this, I can't remember her name, but I kept seeing this video of this director. I think she did like music videos, but she basically was like, every time you have an idea that you are really excited about, or like you want to develop, or just any idea at all really, make like a pitch deck for it, or make a treatment for it, where it stands, where it is in your head, like just write it down in some sort of like, I guess, marketable form, so that when something comes up, because everybody, I feel like I never actually hear about commissioning stuff until it's like, oh, the deadline's in 2 days, and I see it on Instagram, or some people are posting it like, oh, the deadline's in like 5 days, and like I don't have time. So what I do is, because as per that director's advice, because I've got everything already down in like a pitch deck or treatment form, I can just like compare that to like the commissioning brief or what they're looking for. I can find like an idea that I think can fit, and then sort of amend it. And I'm not just starting from scratch. Like I did, like Fishwife, the pitch deck was something I did months before the commissioning even happened.
It's just on the back of your...
Yeah, it was just there, and I was like, oh, this could work for this, because I was like, I definitely want to be making something. And I just like had it ready to go, and I amended it to be like more southwesty based. But yeah.
Was it hard to like get into the groove? Because I find coming up with ideas is like one of my worst aspects, and like, oh, I want to make something, but like, I don't know, and then like kind of can't even get inspired. I just have like nothing pops up.
Yeah, I think genuinely carrying a sketchbook around will solve a lot of people's problems. I mean, not a lot of people describe themselves as like very good at drawing or artists or whatever, but it's even like a diary or just something where you can note down your ideas as it happens. Because I have in my sketchbook as well, where I used to work in a bar, I would have like I would overhear so many nuts conversations.
Or it's all the bar stories that you just hear.
And like overhear all these like girl talks, because you just become invisible as like a hospitality member, which is not very good. But people just talk about their whole life. You get drunk people coming up telling you it anyway. So you just like write it down, and then all of a sudden you've got like this like character, or like this like little, because there's some stuff that you hear that you're like, people can't write this, or like you watch like,
just you wait.
Yeah, like what like you watch like TV shows that you love, like I think everyone loves Fleabag, but like things that are quite human, and like I'm not, like I May Destroy You and shows like that I'm a really big fan of, and then like you watch it and you're like, how did they come up with that? And then it's like, well, they just listened and sort of lived, and they heard people, and they met loads of different people, and that informed their work. I think if you pay more attention to, I'm sure you pay loads of attention to your friends, but like if you sort of think about them as like their mannerisms, their characters, what makes them them, it's often really subtle little things. And so you can write that down, or like write down something you said that was funny, and then when you're stuck, you at least have something to like springboard off of for like a story or a character, because you've already done the work for yourself in like research. You just need to like, you just have like a little library of like stories and characters to like fall back on if you're stuck.
And it's always like that little bit of mannerism that like sells it that you're human, because it's not refined. There's a bit of like control.
Yeah, so I was once stuck on a replacement bus because the public transport in Cornwall was so great, and like I saw this, like it was the same time as like the school ending, like school home time, and there was this girl who was just like she was like so shy, but it was like also annoying. I don't know. She was just like, so she didn't want anyone. It was a packed bus, and she didn't want anyone sitting next to her. So she was like tiny, and she had this massive school bag, and she'd put it next to her because she didn't want to talk to anyone. And it was just such an interesting like thing, because she was so like passive and small and shy, but like she created this like wall, and I was like, that's so interesting. And I still, because it's in my sketchbook and I go through my sketchbook, it's something that you would maybe forget. Like I can't remember really what I had for dinner yesterday. If I probably can, but I just can't off the top of my head. But like I can remember that girl because I've taken a note of her, and like she's a character now that I have like on my belt. I can just like drop in.
And it's just that one piece of powerful imagery that just creates a story.
Yeah, definitely.
I think it's nice, because once you just expose a bit more, you get a lot more avenues of inspiration.
Yeah, and there's so many layers to like a story, but sometimes you just need something really simple to go back to, so that if you get overcomplicated and you overscope and everything's going nuts, especially if you're an independent filmmaker, so you're often like being a production assistant basically, and also like all these other roles, like you might end up also being like the sound recordist, or you might also be the editor, and you've got all these different things to think about that someone like working for like a company would have maybe a team to like think about these things. So having like your basic like impactful image or line or something to fall back to, so that when everything's really overwhelming, there's something that just clears it all out and makes it super clear.
And then that's like still the key thing anyways in any project. Oh, that's really fun. And also the fact that you can get so many stories at the bar.
Yeah, oh my gosh. Honestly, I think hospitality and retail suck. It's minimum wage and it's not good. But you do meet so many weird people, and you do come across so many different stories that you just wouldn't have heard otherwise.
Yeah, because I keep hearing like bar talks, like where you just go to like, are these even real stories that people actually say? Because
also sometimes people do lie. I do think about that. I was like, that person could have just lied. But also they are obviously incredibly creative, because that was very funny.
They're secretly very creative.
Yeah.
Just to tell their friends all these stories.
Yeah, I mean, there's that thing where it's like writers are liars and thieves. Like, I think people can bring their own experiences and bring different aspects of things together to create something original, but no one really ever has like an original idea, because everyone's always inspired by something else.
So any other like inspirations you take from, in terms of like, because you've done bits of everything, like even cinematography, you try and incorporate like other aspects of people's work as inspiration?
There's the film Daisies, which I think is from 1977, but I'm always falling back to that because it's so surreal and fun, and I'm really into like feminist literature and feminist work, so that has always been like sort of a cornerstone of my work. I think I was introduced to it, like I hadn't really heard of it ever before until I was in second year, and then I watched it and I was like, this is amazing. I was like, this is the best thing ever. It's just so fun and unapologetically like, these girls are like low-key assholes, but they are like the best. They're just having a good time and they don't care. So that film has always been really like impactful. I've always been into like Greta Gerwig, naturally. I think her sort of like mumblecore stuff and dialogue I've always been thinking about and like taking a lot of inspiration from. Trying to think who else.
Then what do you do like before as well, like before you met them in second year as inspiration, when you were like in theatre and stuff? Do you have any?
Theatre, I love Stephen Burkoff, who is I think he's dead. I presume he's dead. He's like he's like this like post like neo-realist like actor and writer, and he did a lot of like sort of West Endy like alternative stage plays where it was like very like critical of like what was going on in society, and like had all these like in your face like characters that I often like think about and go back to, just because I'm like, he was incredibly innovative in like a time where theatre, it was like a hub for like people pushing like social boundaries and things, but he was really like going for it. Like if you look up his stuff, he's like incredibly crude and incredibly gross, but people are still talking about it, so he obviously like
he made a massive impact somehow.
Made a massive impact. And then I guess also Jez Butterworth's Jerusalem is a play that I think about basically daily. Probably because it's on my bookshelf, but it's this like story about like these teenagers in the countryside and this man who lives in a caravan, and it's so like it's like Midsummer Night's Dream, but like also council estates, and it's just incredible, and I would recommend anyone read it, or go watch it, though I don't know if it's playing anywhere.
Add that to the list of stuff. That's so cool. Then like, because obviously you keep doing all this inspiration, then do you ever try and do anything to always like improve your craft as like a writer or director? You mentioned about the vocab and just like getting ideas, but how do people like always push on and on to keep going, you know?
Yeah, I would definitely think like number one, or like try write and direct as much as you can, even in like a small form. So the like pitch deck thing and the treatments, like doing those regularly, like from graduating till now, like if I look back on the stuff I made when I was a graduate and I thought I was like, you know, I was just like hot shit because I was like, yeah, I just graduated, like the world's my oyster. I'm like, oh, you had no idea. Like this, like the progress in like 2 years I've made, I'm very proud of, but I'm also like, there's so much more to do and could be done. Like doing like script writing classes and like not really thinking, try not to think that you're too good for these sort of things, especially in Cornwall, where it's sort of like there is like an industry down here, but it's not like a big bustling hub like London or Bristol or whoever.
No, everyone here just knows everyone.
Yeah, and it's like you should like just go to like the script writing workshops and meet people and go to masterclasses. I was really lucky to have a workshop with Bang to Write, who is a script editing person, who like they've edited for like some really big names and stuff, and they were just like tearing apart my work in a lovely way. She was a lovely lady, but she was just like ripping it apart, and I was like, oh. And then I was like, actually my work is so much better after that one session. So like even if you can do like an online class, or like sometimes writers do like live streams on Instagram which are free. Like Daisy May Cooper did one over COVID where she just was like, this is how you write a script, this is how you format it, this is how I think about my characters. So it's trying to like be a part of like script writing communities and directing communities and learning off people. I think that's really important.
That's true. Because when I had the chance to meet professionals, it's funny because sometimes when I go meet editors, the basic skills just get stronger and stronger, and you already know that.
Yeah.
But then they teach you like one tip or trick, and then you're like, how did I not think of it?
Yeah.
And then you just keep it. And I love the fact that people here are actually quite open to sharing, isn't it? Do you have experience like meeting a lot of people? They're like always open to share.
Yeah, I think people who genuinely love like filmmaking and writing and art and craft, they tend to be very open about like, especially if they're maybe a bit older or a bit more experienced, of being like, oh, let me share this with you because I wish I knew this.
Yeah.
Or like, here's like this cool opportunity maybe you should go for. I think that's generally the case I found down here. I think I've only had one experience of someone being like gatekeepy, but they were not very nice in general anyway. So I think it's usually like if you surround yourself with nice creative people, they're gonna want to uplift you and you them, rather than like trying to hold boundaries and keep things inaccessible, which isn't cool.
And it's so nice to just talk to get again like months later, be like, hey, how are you doing, right? Have you just catch up with them? That's so cool.
Yeah.
Then what's next for you?
What is next?
What is next?
I don't know.
You have a lot of projects in the back of your book.
I have. I had this sort of panic when I was a third year of uni. I had some friends in my year who they had got like runner experience on like Game of Thrones, and they've now like shot up into like industry, and I had this sort of panic where I was like, oh my god, like what am I doing? Like, am I even doing this well? Like, I was just like, what's happening? And then I had this sort of epiphany of like, if I'm an old lady and like I've got dentures and a walking stick and I've just like hobbling around with a camera, like filming things I like and filming the stories I like and want to tell, I would be very happy. So at the moment, I'm trying to give myself a little bit of space to just grow and explore, like, and like enjoy getting better at writing and directing. And so right now it's a lot of short films and a lot of like trying to expand my short film portfolio and apply for things. And I will say, like, it's like people don't like publicize their rejections very often. So it's hard when you're on Instagram and you see like this person you follow, or like your friend from uni, or like your like someone you like maybe didn't even know did like writing and art and film and stuff, like they've just got on like some scheme, or they've been awarded some funding, or they've got an award, and you could just feel so shit about yourself. But comparison is a thief of joy, which is something they say to help you make you feel better, but it often just doesn't, because it still feels bad. But also, your life isn't just going to be about filmmaking. You have to live in order to be good at filmmaking, I think. So go and enjoy yourself, and just enjoy it as much as possible, because you don't know what's going to happen. And on one hand, it's like, I don't know what's going to happen. Oh my God. Like, oh Christ. But also, it's like, you don't know what's going to happen. Anything could happen. You could, like, in 10 years' time, be on, like, a red carpet celebrating this crazy thing that happened in your life. Or you could be, like, just where you are now. But, like, that's also fine. And you don't have to be, like, major success. So, right now I'm just focused on being a short filmmaker and taking it one project at a time, because I tend to, like, jump the gun. As soon as I've got one like in the can, I'm like, okay, let's go to the next one. So trying to like enjoy it as a process, and trying to write and get back to like what I really loved about storytelling from when I was a kid, was like making up these worlds and these people. So I'm trying to get back to that, rather than the like hustle, the grind, getting stuff done is just not sustainable.
Yeah, because people don't understand, this is when you make films to let people escape, you're actually doing a job to make people escape, isn't it?
Yeah. And like takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of energy, especially if you're writing personal stories. So, give yourself some grace, calm down. Don't need to put yourself through suffering like in order to make good art. It's not really necessary. But yeah, I'm just right now focusing on Fishwife and post-production. It's going to be really fun and experimental, so hopefully will go very well. If not, I enjoyed it and it was a good time.
And you're going to have fun making the next one.
Yeah, and that's it. And if you don't have fun, then what's the point?
That's true.
Yeah, unless you've got some like greater purpose, ambition to like tell all these insane stories. That's fine. That's also fine. But
Yeah, because
still have
no
fun.
one would do this if they don't enjoy it, isn't it?
Exactly. And I
Yeah.
think the thrill of just like being on set, like after the initial nervousness has ended and then you're on set and things are happening, you're just like, oh my God, I'm here. Like, this is so good. And I want to do this all the time. But yeah, maybe one day I'll do a feature film. Maybe one day I'll do the John Lewis Christmas advert. Maybe one day I'll just bin it all off and do something else.
Or you just create like a more crazier story in your head.
Yeah, maybe I'll just keep going until I'm
That's
absolutely
so fun.
nuts.
Yeah, that's sick. But any last parting gift of wisdom you want to share?
Pearls of wisdom. Relax, have fun, try your best.
And then
Fuck
just
it. You know, just like it's art, it's creative, it's fun. The whole point is that you are expressing yourself, and also you have a whole team of people around you who also want to do that. So just make the most of it as much as you can.
Oh, sick. All right. That's it. You guys heard it here first. Thanks so much for sharing. And if you guys have any questions, please drop a message. We'll be happy to follow up. And yeah, thanks for joining for this episode, Lydia.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been really fun.
And yeah, this has been the A.I.R podcast. Bye.
Bye.